How would you like to see 5?
Yo, Kelly, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Huh?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm checking the site right now to make sure we're live, and it's showing that we're live. So I just don't know what happened last time. It's gonna drive me crazy because I sent you. I see in my text message how I sent you the link also. So I don't know. It's a mystery. I'm not gonna worry about it though.
Hold
Give me
on.
one second.
Crazy. Hold on 1 second. What's going on here, ladies and gentlemen? I don't know why my camera is not on. So hang on real quick. What's going on here, man?
It's almost like you got the lens closed or something. I see something. I don't see black, so it's something is on. It's just something.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking too, but let's be black. There it is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me change my shirt. Hang on 1 second. All right. Let's get this thing started.
All right, yeah. Let me know. You good?
Huh?
You good?
Yeah, actually, I am. Now I am.
All right. Give me a second. So we are live, and I see it on.
I got till 8:15, so my client is good with that. So
Okay. All right. Well, we're live, and I see it on my Facebook page. Give me 1 second.
oh, you went live on your Facebook? Okay.
Well, that's what happens when you do this and you hit go live. It records and it dumps it out on your Facebook page, and I can either come back to my StreamYard account or I can go to not Facebook, YouTube, my YouTube page, and I can just download the audio from there. But anyway, let's not spend any more time talking about that. I'm certain it's going to work this time. All right, give me a few seconds of silence, and I'm gonna rock and roll. Is it true? Oh my goodness, I am really losing it today. I almost started. My microphone is I looked up, my microphone way over there. I was like, I need to go walk around the neighborhood, boy.
It's all good, man. I mean, it's gonna be great.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Test, test, test. Let me test my mic real quick. Test, 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 test. Testing, testing, testing. All right, there we go. All right. Last thing I want to do is record and don't get no sound. Plenty of picture, no sound. That'll be just as bad.
Yeah, I did that on a live on Saturday, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's great.
That happens too.
All right, here we go. Give me 1 second. What happens when you find that you have an issue in your relationship? These issues seem to make things harder. Is it true? Do you believe that relationships are always going to be tough? A lot of times you'll feel like you're trying and trying and trying, but you don't really get anywhere. So what do? What are some ways to take what's turned toxic into a healthy relationship? Well, tonight we have our subject matter expert back, Elam King, and we're going to talk about just that. If you missed our first podcast, you really need to go and check it out. A lot of downloads, a lot of folks interested in what Elam has to say. And I'll be honest with you, I listened back to it several times and I felt like I learned something. And that's the point of it all. We come here for information that we currently don't know. So perhaps you're in a toxic relationship, or maybe toxic is hard or rough or a tough word for you to accept, but things are just not good. What do you do? What do you do? Do you concentrate on communication? Perhaps. Can you help pinpoint the problem with your mate? It's necessary. Do you know what you want? Do you know what you want? Are you willing to make it work? What are some ways to determine the worth of the work? How much time do you spend apart? Have there been any big changes in the relationship? Can you admit that you're wrong? These are things that are taking place or could be taking place in your relationship, and we're going to touch bases with them tonight. So, guys, sit back, relax, and I don't know, maybe even get a pen and pad out and take some notes, because we're going to go into Relationships 101 Part 2, and we're going to welcome aboard again Mr. Elam King. Elam, welcome to Things You Should Know podcast.
What's going on, sir? How are you?
Good. This is
Absolutely.
therapeutic for me today. This is absolutely necessary. I'm super excited about doing this. I will shield the audience from my technical snafu of what we did earlier.
Yeah.
But just know the second
It
time is going to be the best time. The second time is gonna be the best time. So welcome back in. I was just saying that the first episode that we did, the Relationship 101, part one, if you've not listened to that, I don't say it's a prerequisite to this, so go ahead and listen to this podcast in its entirety. But when you're done, please go back and listen to what we talked about a week or so ago. We made a very valid and valiant attempt at answering 5 questions, and there was so much meat on the bone. We decided to come back and bring Elam back because we only got to 2 questions. We started talking about relationships in terms of some things that people should keep in mind prior to committing to a relationship. How to identify your mates, what to do on the front end to make sure that you have as much of smooth sailing as possible. We also talked about the importance of communication in that relationship. Well, today we are talking about toxicity in relationships. Of course, always solution oriented. We don't want to restate the problem 100 times. What you want, and the reason you're listening, is you want a solution. You want to hear something today, tonight, that is going to assist you where you are in your relationship. And I think we can do that. So let's start at the beginning. The question is this, Elam.
Mhm.
What are some ways that couples can turn what may be now a toxic marriage or relationship around? What's our best advice for our couples who are trying to get toxicity out of their relationship?
Man, you got 2 hours. I guess we can try to condense this down. But first of all, thank you so much for even just having me on. Things you should know podcast this evening. And I appreciate you having me on as a guest. So thank you so much. And for those that have, I guess, gathered something in round one, we can definitely make sure that we provide some information on this one. So I hope that I'm able to do that. I think that this message right here, I want to start off by saying that, those that are dating right now, I want you to kind of clue in here, listen in, and kind of take some cheating, get a cheat code, I guess I could say, of it. And then also those of you who are in the tenured relationships, I want you to be encouraged that if you are inside of a relationship right now that's toxic, you have an opportunity of hitting reset. And one of the things that I actually said this to one of my clients maybe about 3 hours ago, because they were in a similar situation to this. And I said, first of all, it's making a decision of hitting reset. And that's the reason why that they were reaching out to me. This was the first time in their 8 years that they have been together that they even went into counsel. So I want to start there, of making sure that you are in counsel. If you're in this space and you're making a decision to move forward, you cannot use the same brain that got you in the situation to get you out. You need assistance from someone else. So it even talks about in the Bible, not to get too scriptural, that a wise man / woman remains in counsel. You don't have all the answers. And so this is the reason why that you have that resource, whether you need to check the EAP at your job, or whether you just need to go on Thumbtack, or maybe you just want to go on a hire Elam King right now. But that's definitely something that I would say step one of having being in counsel, and having the ability to speak with somebody else. I'd say that would be the first piece. The second piece, that's all that will exist inside of that. If let's just say that you were a client of mine and you came to me in that regard, I'm going to go to the baseline, kind of like building a home. When you build a home, right, you start off with that concrete slab, right? And then, of course, the roof is important. The walls and the windows and all that stuff is important. And, the stuff inside or whatever. But if you don't have that concrete slab built correctly, then everything, that foundation everything else is going to be built upon that. So if we were looking at this from a relationship perspective, okay, we have to look at what's on the ground floor, right? And if you want to even look at the word relationship, it's relation, ship. I like to break it up into those two words: relation, the interaction between you and the other person, and ship. What's the direction it's going to go in? So when we're thinking about hitting reset, we got to look at, okay, what's your baseline of love? We can talk about the love languages. When we look at the baseline of your marriage and your purpose, and what direction are you going in, and is that person congruent with that direction that you're walking in? And we have to move away from assumptions of just thinking that the person that you married might not be the same person that you are with today. And I want to highlight that for a moment, whether this is year 2 or year 8 or year 20 or year 50 or whatever. That person might not be the same person that you married. And that's actually okay. As long as there's levels of communication of you guys sitting there and talking to each other, building that baseline. What do I look like today? Hit and willing to hit reset and move forward. So that would be the initial lead in, I would say, of something that can help a couple that's in that toxic moment right now.
Right. So I'm making notes as you're talking, because as you're talking, I'm envisioning my 25-year-old self and maybe my 35-year-old self and where I am now.
Right.
And if I'm being honest, all three of those guys are going to answer those questions differently.
Yes,
because
sir.
of what you said in the latter part of your statement, which I think is likely one of the most important things you said, which is we get into these relationships. Okay, we're in our early 20s, our late teens, and we have this. We're visualizing what the rest of our lives are going to be. And let's see if this sounds familiar. When I was a kid in elementary school, I visualized getting out of elementary school and into middle school. Middle school, I'm visualizing getting out of there and into high school. High school, I definitely want to get out of there because I'm ready to go to college.
Right.
And in college, I'm visualizing my professional life and what I'm going to do with this expensive degree. And then around 25, 27, there's the picket fence, the house, the wife, and the 2 kids. But I didn't think any further than that.
Yep.
I
And
did
that's
not
not
think any further than that.
and that's not uncommon.
Right.
You know, like, here's the thing. This is what I want to take from what you just said, and I love this example. When you were in elementary school, you envisioned what middle school looked like based upon the culture that was around you. That's where that came from.
Right.
All right. You imagined something. Your imagination is actually put there for you so that you can see yourself on the canvas of your imagination where you're going. That's what our imagination is put there for, so that we can grow into that. The challenge with that, I mean, there's not that much. There's not as much accountability from elementary to middle, from middle to high, and from high to college as it is when we're talking about making the biggest financial, emotional, and business decision that you're ever going to make, which is the person that you choose to partner with from a marriage perspective. And maybe you had an imagination, right, of what you wanted that person to look like, and maybe it only stayed up here. And I've noticed that, which is the reason why the pre-marriage is so important. I got married at 26 and I had the same visions. We did 30 minutes worth of pre-marriage counseling. So that's the same as doing nothing. And although that I don't know anybody who's ever gotten a job and then said, okay, what's the salary? What's the responsibility? Right? Where do I have to go? Where am I located at?
On the back end,
on the back end. We never have done that with a job.
Yeah. By the way, what does this pay and what do you want me to do? Yeah.
I don't think you've ever done that from a kid to right now, right?
No.
Heck, we've never even gone on vacation, had no idea where we were going, right?
Exactly.
Have you ever just got on a plane and just went somewhere and just arrived like, okay, now we're going to go have fun? No, you know what the excursions are beforehand. You know when you're going to eat, when you're going to drink, when you're going to kick it, when you're going to go to sleep. Everything, right? So we do this in multiple facets, whether it's with our job or whether it's vacation, whether it's buying a home, whether it's looking for schools. You know, nobody gets just pays money for a college and then finds out what the degree is. So no, we don't do that, right? And so, but in the biggest business, financial, and emotional situation that we'll ever be in, we don't do the due diligence up front. And then we expect, based upon our imagination, that the other person should just know what that looks like. And then when that does not look like the way that we want it to look, then we have resentment, we're upset, contempt, talk about divorce. And so, it's not a secret if you didn't know. So I'm going to say this out loud. In the US, divorce is 50% right now, period. Okay. It's 0.49, same as 50%, right? Inside of the minority community, it is up to 70%. So let's just look at this. You line up 10 black couples, 7 statistically aren't going to make it. Now, if you were going to go play a sport, and those of you who have played a sport, and you have a rival team that you're going up against, how hard do you practice a couple of weeks beforehand? Okay. You probably practice a little bit harder that week or two beforehand. Why? Because you know what you're about to go up against. You've had coaching from your specific coach that's the leader on your team, right? And they're giving you hey, watch this person. Hey, run this play. Remember this play for this, that. And they're giving you the how to win. Now, does that mean that you're going to win? No. But you are setting yourself up to have a possible win without you're not just sitting there on the sidelines eating Cheetos and just saying, hey, we got a game on Friday and we're just going to win. No, you're doing the due diligence for it. So in this space, what I'm asking people to do is that when we're hitting reset, or whether you're even coming from the beginning, we have to do our due diligence. Blue's Clues only works on Nickelodeon. It does not work in relationships. You cannot expect the other person to sit on down and figure you out, because that's what marriage is all about. That's a no. Okay. You have to actually communicate.
I was going to say the communication, go back to Relationship 101, the part 1, where we really went into detail about how important it is to communicate. Now, the reason I brought up my other previous selves was because of this. I did not envision, although I envisioned myself living a long time, I just know what would I be doing? What would I be doing? Did the idea that I was going to not be the same person at 50 as I was at 25 ever enter my head? No.
No.
The idea that my mate would also change? No. The idea that experiences could change both? None of that was ever contemplated
but it is so much the essence of a relationship. I don't even care if it's not romantic. If you have worked in the same company for a long time and you've had the same boss or the same director, you guys are becoming different people, or you should be the older you get. 10, 20, 25 years you've been in the company, you've been working the same department. You guys are
Right.
not the same people anymore. So those relationships are evolving as you're evolving. Now, why do I bring this up? Because what you just said, we did not consider it, and therefore we didn't plan for it.
Right.
And the most ludicrous thing of all is that we believe that we can take the same level of consciousness and awareness
Right.
that we use to create a situation, and then we can use that same level of awareness to fix it. You can't.
You
You've got
cannot.
to go higher.
Right.
You got to go higher. So the only thing you're going to do is mess things up even more. Now, here's what I'll tell you. Now listen, when I say that, I'm really speaking from personal experience, because if I look at my 25-year-old self, I was very much externally oriented. Everything I was doing was based on what someone else was doing.
Right.
And I had a very valid reason as to why things were not, where I wanted them to be. This person is doing this. My mate, at this, how old was I when I got married? I got married when I was 27. But me and my wife have been together for 27 years, married 25. So I was with her at that time. So any dissatisfaction, it was very clear to me. It wasn't my fault. It was someone else. Now, to your point, I never communicated what my expectations were. We did have marriage counseling, but like you said, it was about 30 minutes every 2 or 3 days.
Checking a box. Just checking a box.
Yeah. Basically, so that we could rent the church out. That was one of the requirements of the church, if I'm being completely transparent. And it was less than beneficial. Let's just put it that way.
Right.
So my advice, after being married for 25 years and being in a relationship for 25 years, if a young person or a person that even my age or older would find value in this, here's what I'll tell you. I found that the answer usually was somewhere in me.
Can we rest right here for just 1 second? Because I don't even want you to go into another point for a second. One of the things that I do and when I am coaching a couple is that the first 2 calls that I have are separate. All right. Because people are like, oh, we need counseling. I'm just like, oh, okay, great. The first 2 calls are going to be me with him, me with you. Doesn't matter who goes first or last. It doesn't matter. Why is that? Because most people, when they even go into seeking some type of therapy, counsel, whatever case it be, they normally do it, watch this, so that the coach can tell the other person what they need to do to make this thing happen. They don't go into it thinking about themselves. And I share with my dating people, and this is the reason why I'm saying cheat code when I was saying in the beginning. So those of you who are not married, I want you to be blessed by this information, because here's the thing. The one thing that I find in most relationships, the one person that does not show up inside of the relationship is you.
Yeah.
What happens is that we attach ourselves to somebody, and then instead of us having our expectations, our foundation, okay, so that the other person can build on our walls, right, and build a roof over our foundation, we go into it with little to no expectation. Got to be cute, and sex got to be good, and make money, some of the superficial things, whatever case would be. Oh, they got to love me or whatever. Now all that sounds good, but what are the finite details about that? Who are you? Okay. And do you know who you are? Because here's the thing. You have to show somebody how to love you. My hopeless romantic people, and it's funny, I was on a podcast last night, and somebody said, Elam, why do you just step all over Cupid? I said, what do you mean? Because they were talking about some old hopeless romantic, or you could just meet somebody and fall in love and type stuff. And I was just like, we have to stop looking at some of this subculture that exists of your knight in shining armor. That sounds really good. Here's the thing. It's probably not going to happen for you. Okay. You might actually have to do work in your relationship. You might have to actually get to know yourself first, then actually teach, show, train, I don't care what words you want to use, the other person how to love you. They might know, yeah, I mean, Kelly, you're a guy, right? So what we taught when we were younger, like women like things like us to buy things, right? That's why Valentine's Day has been grooming us since we were in pre-K, right? Buy things for them, do things for them, right? And then when you're getting older, then once you having, you know, from a sex perspective, you got to make sure you hit it like this and hit it right. Like you just said, and I love that part. You were doing things that others were doing, right? Oh, hey, that looks like something that I would like. Or hey, this, that, and the third, instead of sitting down and actually asking yourself, what do I want? Right. And then watch this, even though this other person is a nice person or whatever, whether or not this blessing can actually satisfy the things that you're asking for. And as the 25-year-old Kelly becomes the 35-year-old Kelly, and now he's a new Kelly, the responsibility inside of there is hitting reset and saying, hey, Mrs. Bennett, this is who I am today. Because people try to weaponize change as if it's a bad thing. Let me tell you something. If anybody's telling you that you changing is something bad, don't fall for that. Change is good.
Change is good, 100%.
The communication of not that change is bad.
Right. And to further my point before we get to the next question, practically, some practical steps that you can take right now is what I would call introspection. Introspection is pretty much what we're saying in a number of different ways, because I was not the most brilliant person, but I was smart enough to know that there's a strong possibility that dissatisfaction within my wife could simply be my misinterpretation of what is in this relationship. And if I'm misinterpreting something with my wife, leaving her does not bring confusion. It takes it to whoever I end up with next. So it was a very strong chance that I could make things worse. I could leave my wife and then I could go be with someone else and then have the same problem. So while I was not where I am today in terms of paradigm, it did occur to me that, you know what, you may be the problem. The good news about that is you may also be, and I'm being cynical here, but you are also the solution.
Come on, I was going to say you are part of the problem and the solution. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
We have to accept our roles and responsibility. Listen, if I am obese, I have to accept that I have done this to myself, to my body. I have done this. That's the first step. Second comes the power. Once I accept that, I can now make new decisions and I can do something different to my body. It doesn't matter if it's relationship or overeating or whatever your dilemma may be
in there
that you see in life, but you have to accept your responsibility in it, become aware, become conscious, and then you have to raise your consciousness and say, okay, because where the problem's created, the solution's not there. You must come up higher, solutions up higher, and then you must embrace and accept it. But it begins with responsibility. So for me, with my marriage and with my wife, there was times where I thought I could possibly leave or I could be with someone else that could be more this or more that, and maybe I would be happier. But like I said in Relationships 101, wherever you go, that's where you are. And if the problem is in you, then
come on.
Grass. That's why the grass is never green on the other side, because you're taking whatever toxicity you have over to that lawn also, and the insects will infest there just like they did on this side. The key has got to be the introspection. So we said all that to say this: if you want to take a practical approach to removing the toxicity, and then I'll let Elam kind of take us out into the next question. I would say, from my experience, and not the coach, but this is just life experience for me, somebody 25 years married, 27 years relationship, I would say to begin with you.
Yes.
Begin with you.
Yes. That, man, we could go an hour on that. That's so important because that level of accountability, and I'm saying again for myself, there was a you within me and my marriage for so many years, and you know, the other person, and I was just like, wait a minute. And I think that for me, I was fortunate. I mean, this became something that I began to study. So as I studied to show myself approved to even exist inside of that space, I began to learn more and more about myself. And I was just like,
Right.
wait a minute, Elam, this right here. And watch this. It's not an if then. If
Mhm.
you do this, then I'll be this type of husband. No, I
Oh
should
my
just
God.
be this type of husband. You should just be this type of wife. And if you can't just be,
Yeah.
then perhaps the accountability that's necessary for the longevity of a marriage is what you are not capable of doing. Does that make you a bad person? No. Let me be very clear. Marriage is just like being wealthy. Everybody cannot do it. It sounds good. We want everybody to be rich and all this and that. It's not going to happen, right? Same thing with marriage. Everybody doesn't qualify for it, right? So, you know, there's an accountability that comes with this, to whereas you have to know that you have to look at yourself, and it's not easy to do, particularly when the other person might be doing some wrong things in the meantime. So you're like, well,
Mhm.
I'm only acting like this because they're doing this. But when you begin to peel the onion back, when I began to peel Elam back, I could see that, you know what? I was not happy within myself. Right.
Right.
I didn't show up inside of the marriage on day one. I was kind of like, hey, I just got to do whatever I got to do in this life to just get this money and as legally as possible. And then as some of the blessings came in, I was not happy, and I was expecting that happy to come from the other person. So
Yeah.
I don't know what the next question that we were going to go into. So I want to make sure that we jump to that in a second. But I
Yeah.
want to highlight that point of just starting with yourself. You know, kind of like, hey, we could take this to Drake. Started from the bottom. Now we here. The bottom is you. The cement block on the home is you. The foundation is
Yeah.
you. You
Yeah.
build from there.
Yeah. The slab is definitely you. You made me think of something. My youngest daughter's birthday was this past weekend. I'm going to get to the next question. And we went to this pretty popular breakfast place, brunch place here in Atlanta. And there was a family sitting adjacent to us. And from their dialect, they were from New Orleans. Okay. So there was these three relatively younger women. They were in their 20s, and they were talking about their relationships. And as hard as I was trying to not hear them, honestly,
You was all in it. I'm like that too. I do
well,
that too.
her voice was so distinct
Mhm.
that it was hard. Even my wife said, like, she never stopped talking. It was very hard to not hear them.
Mhm.
And one of the things she said was what you just mentioned. Well, when he begins to do this, then I'm going to do that. And I thought to myself, sweetheart, I could save you so much time and so
I'm
much
trying to
trouble.
tell you.
But that mentality, listen, we're gonna go to the next question. You just made me think of that.
We're gonna have to do a show on if then, on the if then. Like you be like, if
Well,
then,
you know
like,
what?
no.
We were talking before is and audience guys, one of the things I'm going to do is we've already invited Dr. Giovanna Gathers to be here with us on the next recording. And she's going to provide a female therapist, psychotherapist perspective. Also married, also mom of two. And I talked to her. She's super excited about being on. I just want to throw that out to kind of wet your whistle for the next session that we're going to do with Elam will be with Dr. Gathers as well. So look forward to that. But Elam, the next question is this.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about some ways to turn around and to begin to identify toxicity and some things to do to turn that around. But let's talk about intimacy, because that's very how do I say that? That is a very risque, a very that's a Pandora's box in relationships, because people's idea of intimacy is different. Listen, I've been a man for 51 years, and men identify differently as it relates to intimacy. And we're not just talking about physical intimacy. We're talking about, what does that word mean? When does it actually begin? And the question actually is, what are the 5 levels of intimacy?
So here's the thing. For anybody who's listening right now, I want you to kind of clue in on this. And this is information I came across just through research. But if you want to have a temperature check in your home, if you want to know where things are, what I'm about to explain to you is something that will give you a good gauge of where you are, as we were just talking about individually, and then where your relationship as a whole, and it allow you to fill the gaps. Because let me just ask you this really quickly. Kelly, when you hear the word intimacy, what do you think of? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
I'm going to give you 3 answers from my 25, my 35, and now, because I know the answer now.
Right. Yeah, you got a cheat code. I shouldn't have asked you that, but what do most people say? But go ahead.
But if you'd asked me that when I was 25, I would have immediately went to sexual intercourse, sex.
Yeah, exactly. That's the 95% answer. Yes.
Right. And at 35, it still would have been heavy sex, but I'm being forced, coerced into having to do these other things in order to make my wife feel in the mood. And I'm not talking about foreplay.
Right.
Lest you confuse yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
I'm not talking about foreplay. I am talking about making
that list.
Yeah. You can have a honey-do list. Mine included helping with the baths, helping with the homework, taking pressure off of her so she would not be so tired when her feet finally got into the bedroom. So listen, I had a litany of things to do in order to help her. And listen, I'm not making fun of that. That's all real. It's all good. Real. We should all be doing that anyway. But I didn't understand that when I was 25, understood it better at 35, and I began to shift my paradigm after that. And at 51, I would say really identifying with the person in their totality. Now, I am of the mindset that you don't complete anyone. So I'm not trying to complete my wife. What I attempt to do every day, and this is really my level of consciousness at this point in my life and where my paradigm is. I just bring to her the best version of me.
And as we're looking at even that space of bringing the best version of you, I want to empower everybody with these 5 different levels of intimacy. And so, if we look at the first one, of course, we were talking about physical. That's the one that people know, right? And that comes through that, whether it's sex, sexual intercourse, oral sex. Just actually being physically with that person from a making love perspective, and the benefit of being married, of a bedroom undefiled and all that good stuff. Whatever you do, that physical is necessary. That physical intimacy is necessary. But that's the first one that people think about. But then we have about 4 more. And in no particular order, I want to share these with you, and I want you to think about them and I want you to first think about your level of participation of giving that intimacy, and then the receiving of that as well. So we can go with emotional, right? Emotional intimacy. And that's actually physically, that's actually understanding the way the other person's mind is thinking. That's where how was your day today? How was your day today is emotional intimacy. Right, you're tapping into where that person is mentally in their mind, and what did they go on with today that might have had nothing to do with you, right? What are they experiencing? Maybe there's a tough time, and or maybe there's a health thing that they're going through that they're checking up on. Maybe we're in the 4th month of the year. How many of these New Year's resolutions have you gone back and spoken with? That's emotional intimacy. Right. Your spouse told you that they wanted to do this in January, and now it's April, and they might be feeling discouraged about it. How much emotional intimacy do you have vested into that, of helping them, or whatever case it be, just talking them through it? Maybe that's just having conversation. Emotional intimacy is actually tapping into the way the person thinks and how they feel emotionally, and connecting with them and actually really caring. Of course, you want somebody to do it with you as well, but you're giving. It's not an if-then. If you check on me, then I'll check on you. No, you are proactively giving your emotional intimacy to somebody else. Is there a reciprocity that should be there? Yes. Perhaps that you need to start somewhere by giving that, and then you'll more receive that. So we have emotional intimacy. Intellectual intimacy. That's really more of, if you think about intellect, mind, right? really and I'd say the best area of here is this is when you're talking about stuff dealing with maybe politics. This is when you're talking about stuff dealing with what does this person like to do. For example, I'm a relationship coach, so my significant other asked me about my business and what direction it's going in. Maybe they're helping me. Maybe when I have an event in 3 weeks and they're just going to be like, hey, do you need any help at the door or whatever, or this is how you can expand it. So I like this post that you did, or this social media wise, you're tapping into, hey, what is that person's job, right? What are they doing on a daily basis? How can you contribute? And maybe your contribution is maybe just listening, right? Yep. You asking them, they want to go for a VP. So you're just like sitting there and listening to them why and how and helping them maybe interview. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? This is and it's not only just stuff with jobs. It maybe also could be, the hobbies that they do, right? Whether it's fishing, whether it's golfing, whether it's basketball, even if it's video gaming. That's intellectual intimacy. You're becoming a part of certain pieces, right? Of how they think from an intellectual perspective, right? You have spiritual intimacy. Speaks for itself, right? Whoever your deity is that you're worshiping, how are you guys worshiping together, praying together, seeking counsel together inside of this spirituality? I'm a believer, so I'm going to be speaking with regard to God and going to church, and Easter Sunday is this Sunday, whatever case it be, in communion and all that. Just strictly staying in that space, reading the Bible together, talking about passages together, how God is working in my life and how God is working in your life. Spiritual intimacy. Right. Going to church together and stuff like that, like I was speaking of earlier. Right. And then so we have emotional, we have intellectual, we have spiritual. We talked about physical in the beginning. And last but not least is experiential intimacy. Right. Experiences that you are doing together, things that you're doing together. Right. And then if you have children, things that you're doing, you and him, or him and you, him and you and the children, you, him and you, children, and maybe in-laws or cousins or sisters or brothers, or maybe it's just, whatever that a family meal, whatever, when you have those people that might not be going out that much or doing things together, the experiences that you have together builds a bond, right? So that is something that also that you want to think about. What are the things, the vacation, right? Whether it's something that's planned or whether it's something that's just real quick, or staycation, whatever. These are the experiences. And some of these can be intertwined because sometimes your intellectual might carry an experience that you guys can have together, right? Hey, if I'm having a panel event, right? Well, the intellectual intimacy might be, hey, how can I assist you? And the experience might be, hey, maybe you're in the audience, maybe you're checking people at the door, whatever, right? So if you take a moment and you think about these 5 levels, right? Beyond just physical is important, right? But looking at all 5 of these, what does your concrete slab look like in your home, right? And I would ask our listeners to think about that. What is your participation? Not an if then. What is your participation proactively on those 5 love languages, on those love languages, Lord, on those 5? Yeah, I can get caught up, right?
We're going to get to the love language. We're going to get to the love language, but that's a great point. So we began the podcast talking about how to turn your relationship around in terms of toxicity. Some things have gone wrong. It's just not feeling good. And you want to figure out a way to kind of get back to those good feelings. Well, we talked earlier about how to do some introspection. Here's the second thing in what Elam is saying. Usually, my experience, when things are not well and we're using words like toxic, intimacy's off.
Say it.
Intimacy's off. I don't care which one.
Yep.
But it's off.
Yep. You don't want to go nowhere with them.
Right.
Let's be 100.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's just be clear.
Be 100 in America, because dating people can't understand this sometimes. It's like, how could you not want to be around? I don't want to be around you. When it's toxic.
Yeah.
So there goes the days where out the door.
Yeah. There are some days in marriages where you may love that person, but you really don't like them today. And there's especially for. Well, I'm not going to say that. Here's what I would say. Somewhere along the line, for whatever reason, the relationship got off. And if it doesn't get back on, intimacy is going to suffer. How do I know that? Number one, I've been through it.
Right.
If the relationship is toxic, you don't feel like communicating very much because for whatever reason you're upset with the other person. So things start to be ignored. And if your physical intimacy, particularly for men, is been ignored on long periods of times, you're gonna run into other problems. And maybe that's the same with women. I've never I don't see that, but it could be. But I think the first place, my point is, I'm wandering a little bit, but my point is this. I would look in one of these buckets.
Yes, sir.
Physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, or experiential.
Yes, sir.
Somewhere in the intimacy bucket is some work to be done.
Yes, sir.
That can put you back on track. And the sooner you start looking in these buckets, I believe the better off you're going to be. For me, I've noticed in my relationship, like right now, my wife and I can have a disagreement, or we're just not vibing for some reason. Now it does still happen, but we can go for weeks and we're just all over each other. And the thing with me and my wife is I don't like to be away from her for like 48 hours is a lot for me to be away from my wife.
Right.
She likes to travel. We like to travel, and sometimes she'll go. Like she just went on a cousin's trip not long ago. She went to San Diego for a few days, and boy, when she's planning it, she's super excited. When she's heading to the airport, I'm dropping off. She's still excited. She gets to the place, and that first day or two, she's still excited. But that third day, this has happened more times than not. She says,
Wow.
"I'm ready to come home.
Right.
I'm ready to come home. I can't really sleep." I just came back from a conference. I was there for 4 days. The first 2 days, I was okay.
Right.
The third day, I was like, I'm really missing being home. And what that means to me, I'm really missing my life, my wife.
Right.
So for us, if we're off, then one of us at this stage in our lives takes the initiative to kind of put it back on track. Now, 25 years ago, no.
Right.
25 years ago, there was a lot of ego.
Right.
I can only speak for me, but I had a lot of ego.
Oh no, me too. No,
Yeah.
me too.
A lot of ego. This should have been done. I shouldn't have to ask for this.
Assumptions.
I don't know why I'm waiting, and it built into anger and regret, and it was not productive. So if you're in that stage of your life where you feel this way, this is an indication. I'm trying to save you some time. There's two ways to learn. You can either listen and take the advice, or you can go through it yourself. What I'm telling you is real as the grass in your yard.
Come on.
If you go down that path, you're going to make the distance greater. No woman who is not talked to you all day, you've not talked to her all day, is going to be intimate with you and enjoy it. She's not going to want to do that. And you're not going to want to go consecutive days or multiple days and not be intimate with your wife. Okay.
Right.
So it's going to benefit you if you go ahead now and begin to provide some solutions. So that's just experience me talking. That's 51-year-old me talking. Again, though, I'll say this 10 times out of 10, when I look for the solution now, and I'm not trying to heap some sort of backward praise on myself. God knows I didn't do this in my younger days. But I'm telling you, in the last 10 years, I don't ever look at my wife for the solution. I just don't. I don't think it's there. I think if something off, it is me. You understand what I'm saying? I'm looking.
No, that's very mature. And if we could all take that concept. Now, it can't. No, let me just for the sake of just conversation, let me be clear. It does take two to make a thing go right. Okay.
Yes.
I want to make sure that where you can have it was an actor that somebody put something on Instagram and it was just like, you can't take somebody to another level unless they want to go to that other level. Right. So if the toxicity or if the marriage is kind of like at a low point, you're in the valley and you're trying to climb up the mountain, you cannot go up that mountain by yourself. Let me be very clear about that. Right. But before that we cash in and just say that it's their issue, whatever case it be, I'm asking you to exhaust the exhaust yourself inside of maximizing these 5 intimacies as much as possible, right?
Right.
And so because there's times throughout a marriage where you might have to carry each other, right? Based upon different
there
things that
are
happen,
100%.
so, like
There is
life
going to
might
be a
come
time.
along and you got to carry them emotionally. You might have
Yes.
to carry them sexually. You might have to carry them, intellectually. They might be down. It might be illness. Life is going to come along. But
Yeah.
as long as you're willing to draw a line in the sand, put a redefine, as we were talking about earlier in the conversation, redefine of yourself, and you willing to go do, because trusting God and loving is not enough. Let me be very clear with that. You have to do something. That's why even in the Bible it says faith without what?
Right.
Works. These 5 levels of intimacy is you doing the what? Work. So all your prayers and all that's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. You also have to do some work.
Yeah.
In order to get it where
we said on a podcast like this, the knowledge does not apply itself. You having the knowledge of something and then you actually applying it, those are 2 very different things. And I think this audience understands that. And I'll say it like this, that I have found over the time that I've been married, that the wide majority of the times where I was looking for some solution, I always found it inward. And I'm of the belief that there is reciprocity in the universe, and you or some external force cannot take something from me that is not yours to take. Right. So my attention can just be focused where it needs to be focused. I don't have to worry about if somebody's cheating on me or if somebody's not treating me. I took my attention away from that years ago because I spent a lot of time in that ball game. Mm-hmm. She said she was going to be home at this time. Why is it this time? Or why doesn't she cook? Hello, why don't she cook like my mama? And
right. I mean, that's real. I mean, we have all said these things over the years. We do
all of those things.
Right.
And the approach I began to take is that if you're hungry, why don't you cook? And guess who cooks?
But let me throw this in there. All right. Yeah. So let me just push back just for a second to say that here's the thing. I always like to share with people, whatever your expectations are, there's no wrong answer.
Right.
Just know that the other person has to sign up for what your expectation is. Right. Yeah. Because I've seen some astronomical things that people have wanted. I've seen some very small things that people have wanted that the other person that wasn't willing to do. Right. Yeah. And so I say all that to say that whatever your if you are saying that you want the other person to cook and you never want to, if that's what you want that other person to sign up for, you have to take the consequence or the blessing that comes with that. Because some people will be like, oh, okay, I can do that. And other people are going to be like, hell no. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
it's funny. We actually could talk about it a long time. Of the married men I know, I don't know any married man in my little circle of friends
to say it. Go ahead,
that their wives cook. I kid you not. I do not know one.
Listen, I tell people it's no longer a prerequisite for us. We don't talk. We could go an hour on this one, but it's kind of like guys becoming
not happening.
Saying it don't even matter if you know how to cook or not. Like I got this. Like my mom. Watch this. My mother said that to me, and the 3 of my brothers, we grew up together. It's really like 6 of us, but she said to us, she said, I am not going to let y'all leave this house without knowing how to cook. In the 80s, she could see it. She was just like, because these women coming up these days, they don't know how to cook no more. So I got to teach y'all how to do it. Best thing my mom could do.
Well, we must have the same mom. My mom, I knew how to wash clothes. I knew how to cook. I knew how to do everything I need to do to take care of myself, which is case in point. And this is my belief. Now, listen, let's be logical about this. Some people are severely unequally yoked, and that's another conversation. I'm not suggesting that somebody that's highly unconscious is going to be aware of your efforts and provide reciprocity. Okay.
Right.
What I'm saying is that you've done the work on the front end, that you are matched up relatively equally, and the person is logical, ethical, etc. It takes a very coarse and callous and unconscious person to see your willingness to give and not provide reciprocity. The
Right.
question is, are you willing to do it and be the first? Because so many people just say, I'll do it as long as they do it. That's not, you're missing the boat. It
Say it.
really, and let me say this so it's clear. And this is me, and this may not, Elam, you may not necessarily agree, and that's fine. But for
Mhm.
me, it's really not about the other person all the time. It is
Right.
about me. It is
Right.
about what my personhood and where I am spiritually and consciously. I love to do for my wife. I really do. It's a part of my nature. I
Right.
love to do things for her. Does that mean that I am somehow, I don't know, trying to motivate her to do the same thing for me? I thought about that for a long time. Maybe I'm doing stuff for her because really stuff I'm giving her, I want her to give me. And even beyond that, that's not really the case. This is, and maybe this is a love language. Part of me is to give. I love helping people, and the person that's closest to me is the mother of my children, my wife. And so I do more for her than anyone else. And I don't take score. So
Mhm.
in my 20s, I was taking score. And it never turned it never turned out equal. So my advice, don't take score. Just give and give and give and be confident. And if this is your belief, God bless you, that you are being, that reciprocity exists. We live in a cosmos, not a chaos, and that there's laws to this, and that beyond what we can see, things are in motion, and that your actions, your vibration, your heart, and what you are trying to do and give for the other person is sincere, and that really does mean something.
I think that the reason why I would push back on that just a little bit is because I think that, okay, so there's this test that you can do online. It's a narcissist test, right?
Mhm.
And it kind of gives you, what's the gauge of you as a narcissist. And if you're past a certain percentage, then you're like a narcissist, right? Or,
Right.
you're selfish and you're all into yourself. And here's the thing. It's okay to have a whiff 'em inside of your marriage. What's in it for me? I think that is okay. That's just me. And
Mhm.
so I'm okay, doing for somebody and doing for the kids. Oh no, we could just say with my wife, just doing for that individual. I think that that's okay, but
Mhm.
I want something back. Okay. And I think that that's okay. Now, if I'm doing it just to get it back, that's
Yeah,
that's
yeah, 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 yeah,
genuine,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
if I'm like, I'm just going, that's why I said there shouldn't be no if then. I'm gonna just do
Yeah.
with the expectation that you're gonna just do, and we're just gonna keep doing for each other in the capacity in the area that we want, and loving each other in the space that we want. Because just like you have a need, that person has a need too. Now, maybe some of the acts of service people might, you find pleasure in kind of just doing this for somebody
Yeah,
else.
that's what I was gonna say. I think I'm actually
Love the
fulfilling
way
my
you give it
need.
too.
Yeah, I think I'm actually in some ways fulfilling my need by being able to give.
And that's okay.
And
And that
yeah,
and some
yeah.
and you know what? I had a neighbor gave me something the other day and whatnot, and I've noticed him because he's my homie. You know what I'm saying? Like we've been kicking it probably for about 10, 12 years or whatever. And so he's a gifts love language person. I know that about him, right? So
Mhm.
when he'll go out of town, he'll come back and be like, yeah, man, I was in Cancun and I just got you and the missus this, or I just did this, I did. And I'd be like, oh man, thank you, dude. And sometimes I'd be like, when I go out of town and come back, I don't do that. You know why? I'm not a gift love language person.
Yeah,
I'm not, right?
yeah,
But guess
yeah.
what? The coaching and the conversation that him and I have is kind of like there's a give back on the back end, right? But I don't think the same way that a gifts person does, right? So at the same time, I'm just saying that I think it's okay
Mhm.
to expect something back, to have a reciprocity at some point, but not walk into it and do it in a disingenuous manner just with the expectation that you're going to get something back. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? Like we
No,
lose our marriage like
I'm okay with that language. I'm okay with that. I think if you're doing it just for, uh to get something back, I think that, you're kind of That's kind of obvious.
We ain't
If
gonna
you
just
haven't,
listen. We can't just be out here just keep doing. No, you need something back. No, at some point.
yeah, I've got to think about that though, because I don't know if you were to ask me in all honesty, and this is prepping our audience for the next recording, because we are going to get into, I don't know any of them, but we're going to have Elam and Giovanna explain to us the love languages. And this is important because this gives you insight into what it is that your mate is asking you. Now, maybe it's been Morse code up to this point. You just haven't been able to decipher it because you don't know what their love language is. But we're going to break it down to you in the next episode, and we're going to talk solely about love languages. And we're going to have Vonnie on, Dr. Vonnie Gathers on. She's going to explain to us, from a female standpoint. We're really not from a female standpoint. I think we've been kind of down the line here. We're not taking sides or anything like that. This is more scientific than anything. But we do want to hear her voice. She is very qualified. She's a psychotherapist, and she's going to be able to bring a viewpoint that just because of who we are, Elam and I probably cannot go as deep. We're going to have Elam back, and we're going to talk love languages. And I'll close out tonight, Elam, just by saying this. Number one, thanks again for being on the show. I feel like at some point we're going to have to slide out minimum 2 hours to talk through this type of stuff. We're always booked. We're coming from some other commitment, trying to get to another one. And an hour seems like it's the most as we can do to kind of edge things out. But thanks for being a part tonight. Elam's contact information is going to be in our show notes. And I think you made an offer before. Do you want to make that offer?
Yeah, absolutely. I want if you can send an email, write this email down, folks. info@understandingaman.com. Again, info@understandingaman.com. The first two people that send me the top five, the five levels of intimacy, just to show that you've been reading and paying attention. I'm just going to take the first two people. You know what? Let me take the first, and I'm going to take the first and the fifth person. How about that? Right. So you so the first and the fifth person, I'm going to send a free copy of my latest book. This is When His Soul Cries. It's an anthology of myself and 5 other individuals. And so, of course, men, we don't speak as much as we should. This is kind of a spin from my first book, which is Understanding a Man, which I thought I had here somewhere. Hold on. Do I have it, ladies and gentlemen? I don't have it. All right. I don't have it. Oh, no, here it is. All right. How about that? I got to dig in the crates. This is the spin from the first book, Understanding a Man, where the men were speaking and just giving information of how we feel. So in this book, When His Soul Cries, it's about triumph, tears, and just the trauma, and us sharing some information to help men kind of navigate and walk through some of their emotions inside of relationships. So first and fifth person, you get a copy of When His Soul Cries. So yeah. Okay.
All right. So guys, take advantage of that. Again, Elam's information is going to be in the show notes. And as always, especially listen all the way through, I really appreciate you guys supporting the podcast. If this is your first time, make sure you subscribe before you go and start digging in our archives. This is our second season. I think this is our 17th show. At this point, we're rocking and rolling, guys. So check out our paid platforms as well. We appreciate your support. Look forward to Dr. Giovanna Gathers and Elam coming back. We're going to do Relationships 101 Part 3, and we're going to talk specifically about love languages. My hope, as always, I trust that you have learned something here through this discussion that's going to help you as you move forward in a more productive fashion in your life. Now, the last thing I'll say is this. We added a new component this week to the podcast. I'm really excited about that. In case you didn't hear the commercial coming in, we have a voicemail set up now where you can leave a message for us here at the podcast. We'll weave it in and play it into our intros. Leave us a nice message. Tell us what it is that you're enjoying about the podcast. This will be a way for you to interact with us. We thought it'd be a cool element to get our listeners' voices on our intros. So please take advantage of that. Elam, again, thanks for joining us here at Things You Should Know Podcast, guys. We will be back again in 48 hours with some brand new content. Thank you so much. Make sure you're checking us out on all of our social media platforms, Instagram and YouTube. And guys, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Thank you.